Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. We're here with Dr. L, and we'll do some background later on. It's going to be all in reverse here. But he and I were talking. I was like, "Oh, we're talking about good things." I'm just going to hit record.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so TikTok and YouTube, as far as I know, are like two of the only platforms that'll actually pay you. Like Instagram, they don't care how much traffic you're bringing. They're like, "We're not giving you anything," as far as I know. But YouTube, I guess the minimum it's like 1,000 followers and then 10,000 watch hours. But TikTok, they play ball, man. So like once you reach 1,000 followers, you can add all your links. You can get on TikTok Shop, which I just got on for the author thing. So I've got like T-shirts on there. I've got like art
Oh,
prints and
cool.
things. But then also you can do these live shows, and people can like tip you and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's like incentives. But anyway, all this to say, TikTok wants you. They want me to be doing exactly this. Like I'm on another platform telling people get on TikTok, and TikTok is willing to like give you opportunities to make money. It's like they'll pay you if you have 10,000 plus followers. You can get on TikTok Shop. You can do the live thing. So I'm doing a live interview tomorrow. And that'll be the first time I've gone live. So I'm like, I don't totally know how it works. I'm kind of a late
Yeah.
adopter. Like I'm not very techy, So I'm like, I got to look at something 100 times and see other people do it. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so now we'll do the introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rite of Passage podcast. We're here with my buddy, Dr. L. Reeds. How are you, Doctor?
Doing all right. Doing all right. After this, I eventually want to get back to the TikTok thing, but we'll go through this first.
Well, good. Yeah, because and I'm TikTok may get banned in a month. People are all unraveled about it. So it's from all my experience and just what I'm hearing from everyone, it is the best social media platform in terms of like organic engagement. Like
Hmm.
they're willing to show your stuff to, so like I'll put a video on TikTok. It'll get anywhere from, and I have two different accounts, but like my author one, it'll show it to like 200 or 300 people. My other one, which is a smaller account, they'll show it to like 800 or 900 people, which is weird. I have less followers, but they'll show it to more people.
Hmm.
But then I'll put the same thing on Instagram and they'll show it to like 30 to 50.
Okay.
So it's like, I don't know. So there's a lot of organic growth with TikTok. The community engagement's amazing. Like you get the most comments, the most people talking, the most people sharing your content. And I've had, I mean, probably 3/4 of my book sales last year were from TikTok.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Okay.
like the YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all these other things have been like so secondary, but YouTube would be a close second. Like they'll show the shorts to a lot of people, and um, obviously it's a long form thing. So like
Yeah.
you get generally better engagement. People will watch more of it. You can have their attention for a little longer than Instagram. Like so, I'm TikTok and YouTube are really the primary places that I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with TikTok. I'm, I remember YouTube from a long time ago.
Right.
And whenever I started, I got on, I guess, X now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then YouTube. I read some things about, because I wasn't really present, on the internet and everything.
Yeah.
Read some things, and it was like, here's what if I was in 2024, I think, here are the ones I wouldn't get on. Like the first one was X. And I was like, well, screwed that up. Uh,
Yeah.
and the second one was I get on these three, and like no, I was on any of those.
Right. Right.
And then it said, however, if you like long form, you could do YouTube. And I thought, well, okay, I started on YouTube, just recently at that time.
Right.
Like I'll stick this one out, but I'm sure it would benefit me to get on some others.
Yeah.
Um, I just I haven't been convinced yet, though your argument's pretty compelling here, or at
Well,
least your
what's
pitch is pretty compelling here. So maybe I'll
what's
look into it.
really easy, and this is basically what I do, is like if I make a 1 minute video, I'll use TikTok to edit it because their editing is the best. Like,
Okay.
the Instagram shorts, all this stuff. TikTok gives you so many editing options right on your phone that like you can make it whatever you want. I mean, it's the easiest to use. And then I can save it. And up until a month ago, you could save it without a TikTok watermark, but now they changed it. So like it's gonna have the TikTok branding. But I'll
Hmm.
make the same video in TikTok and then I will just save it to my phone and I'll just put it on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. And like TikTok still does the most good with the video, but it's like
Hmm.
I'll just put it everywhere. And it only costs me a couple extra minutes to just like, I'll even copy and paste the same language. And I'm sure for people who follow me in multiple places, it's probably really annoying.
Yeah,
But, you know, like they're different ecosystems of readers and people. I mean,
sure.
like one of these things, like I'm trying to promote the podcast from TikTok. I cannot get the TikTok people to switch over to YouTube to take a look. It's like
Gotcha.
totally different ecosystems, and people have
Yeah.
drawn their lines in the sand. Like I'm a TikTok person, I'm a YouTube person. But
I mean, I'm one of those. Yeah.
right. And while it's inconvenient to like, hey, I'm trying to build a following on YouTube, I'd love to have some of my friends over here support me over there.
Yeah.
Um, you're reaching fundamentally different people. And I mean, the goal, you know, for I guess anyone who's a creator, an author, an artist is like just try to reach as many people as possible who will connect with whatever you're working on, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. But TikTok, I was hesitant for a very long time because I was like, I don't know, it's kind of suspicious and they're kind of spying on us. And I'm not sure how this is all going to play out with China and Taiwan. And, you know, I have this sense, and I've heard this, that like in China on TikTok, they show people engineering videos. And then in America, they make us watch cat videos and girls twerking and anything to warp our minds and make us stupid. And while I'm sure that is true, I find it probably less dangerous to have the CCP spying on me than my own government. Like, what are they going to do with my stuff versus my own government who, like, you know, knows me? They're like
Yeah.
here kind of thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
I was
I think
hesitant.
I think I was in my um, former job. It was banned. So
Mhm.
like, if you were on the server, you couldn't even access it.
No
And
kidding.
of course, you weren't allowed to download it on um, employer devices. So
The point was just for security reasons.
no, I think it was I'm in Texas, so I think it was law passed.
Oh, no kidding.
I can't remember. I'm
Huh.
not sure. I'm not sure exactly. So
Yeah.
maybe it was just security reasons, but I think it was, um, and people can let you know in the comments, or
Yeah.
or you can just go Google the Texas law after this. It might have been a law past that, because it was like all of a sudden you can't have this anymore.
Interesting.
So I think that was the case, but
Yeah.
it didn't affect me. It's one of those things that went into effect that never affected me because I didn't have it and wasn't on it. I
Right.
just remember the announcement, and so I kind of took that as some heuristic guidance. As okay, well, I'll stay off of it for now.
Yeah. You might as well, like, hey, we'll see how this all shakes out. Or,
Yeah,
yeah. And you've been working without it. So it's like, oh, I'm not going to miss it. And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like if someone came in and you know banned, I don't know, some coding software that I don't use.
Right. You're like, okay.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Not a problem for me.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, so quick backstory for anyone listening. So I met Dr. L. I don't know if that was 6 months ago, a year ago. I couldn't even tell you. It was a little while back, but within the last year. And I was on YouTube trying to find my own link. And then I discovered like you had made a video about one of my books. You and I had never spoken. You picked up my book totally at random,
Hmm.
enjoyed it, made a book review. I was like, that's awesome. I need to like reach out and thank this guy. We started talking, and then I was like, dude, I'd love to come on your show. And you're like, let's do that. I was actually looking to evolve the show and do interviews
Yeah,
and things. So that's how we met. So Dr. L is an indie author. He's an avid reader, but also an indie author advocate. So I mean, I'm sure you
yeah,
read all kinds of things, but one of these things is like you'll pick up a book that's kind of an underdog that no one knows about. You'll give it an honest review. You're primarily on YouTube, and then I see you on Instagram too, but YouTube is kind of your
yeah.
main playground.
Yeah, I'd say so also my name is just Logan. So Dr. L Reads I think is what I went by on X, but
Yeah.
and I just kind of put that in a different place. I think it's YouTube. I think it's my handle on YouTube.
Hmm.
The channel is called Novel Insights.
Yes.
But yeah, I your so your it was a short story. It was the Nobody Who Fought a Dragon was the first one I read.
Yeah.
And it was because I mean I remember we talked about it, on the interview that we had on my
Hmm.
channel, but it was a guy offered a drink to a dragon, and it had a award sticker on it, or a gold medallion sticker on
Yeah.
it. And I was just intrigued. It was one of those, the cover really did it. And so I was intrigued. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, I was kind of starting, and so I didn't have any connections with indie authors. So I
Hmm.
kind of had to forge them, which is essentially what happened that you just described by you know, reading, and then reviewing the books or the short stories. And I had no plan on reaching out to you. I think I just did it because I was like, I just got to start and,
Just start
build
something.
a
Yeah.
library, yeah, of these. And so when you reached out, I thought this was awesome. I think you were the first one to come on my channel to actually talk about their
Your
story
book.
or their
Yeah.
book and their writing and stuff like that. I am an indie author advocate because so far I've read some really good indie stories
Mhm.
and books and things like that. And then also I'm I'm trying to write my own on my own, so I've
Okay.
been, doing a lot of learning. So a lot of my reading is for intrigue and interest and entertainment and things like that, but a lot of it's also to study what does this genre read like?
Mm.
What do indie books read like? What do traditionally published books read like? What, you know, what is, I've been on, have you heard of the podcast slash YouTube video series, the channel Bald and Balding?
No, I think I saw you mention that on maybe an Instagram post or something, but
Yeah.
tell
So
me more.
there are a couple of indie authors, and one I know does editing as well.
Mm.
And they basically bring on indie authors, and they also bring on the section called unpublished authors, which is where I fall
Nice.
because I do not have any kind of publication, and you get to ask questions. So you
Okay.
could, look at that series, and if you look at the ones with me, I'm sitting there with like a notebook, and they're having fun, and I'm like, hey, I have a serious question now, and I have fun with them too. But I went there with some intention because I'm a researcher by training, I guess you could say. And
Mhm.
so I really want to know and find out more about these things. So a lot of my ex posts are questions about the indie publishing and the traditionally publishing process and things like that.
Yeah,
So
that's a great thing to do because like there's so much. Like I learned a lot of things the hard way personally, just because I was like, I'm just gonna write the book and figure out everything after. It would
yeah,
have been cool to take a little time ahead of time to be like, hey, how do I maximize kind of my efforts here with publishing, marketing, editing, and pick the brains of like, and that's one beautiful thing for anyone listening about the internet is like, in my real life, I don't know any authors,
yeah,
but I've connected with a lot of people who are writing via the internet, and it's like there's so much you can learn, and they're willing to help if you ask them questions.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The indie author community has been super nice, and they let you write in, and they've been nothing but beneficial and helpful. As far as my experience goes, sounds like yours is similar.
very similar. So I do want to pick your brain. So when we did our podcast some months ago, you were not writing at that point,
Um,
as far as I know. You didn't mention it at least. Maybe it was very.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention it because that wasn't the focus of the interview. Is for you.
Yeah,
I wanted because I started my channel with the purpose of providing whatever platform I could for indie authors who don't have either the means or the finances to be able to do a lot of marketing on their own. So I was like, well,
right.
I can kind of do something that I'm interested in, have fun with, that doubles as kind of free advertising and marketing for anyone who wants it. Even though my, viewership is small, it's growing though. And in fact, the video that you were on still gets views every once in a while,
No kidding.
even though it's so early on.
That's a
Um,
cool thing about YouTube, just by the way,
yeah,
as a side note. Like they pay dividends in terms of like most social media, your post has a day or two and then that's it. But
yeah.
YouTube, they'll just like, I don't know, keep sending it for, here and there for a while.
Sure. And like in a recent video I made, I put the thumbnails from all of my indie author interviews on
Nice.
there, and so I think I keep bringing it back up anyway. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Just keep, yeah.
but you're right. I did not bring it up. I think at that time I had not started a fiction book.
Okay.
I have one Christian nonfiction manuscript finished.
Nice.
And so I'm in the editing stages of that one, and I have another one outlined. So I did
Sweet.
that a little bit of nonfiction writing, and I've written an academic book, and I've edited an academic book. So I'm published in
Nice.
the academia world, just not in the non-academia world.
So we did talk about that. So you're a psychologist by trade, correct?
Yeah, social psychologist.
Social psychologist. You were telling me you do a lot of like research writing,
Hmm.
nonfiction writing in the field. So
Hmm.
you are in fact an author and you've been an author, but in terms of like fiction and creative writing, I remember very distinctly from our show that you like didn't regard yourself as a creative person. And I've been thinking
Right.
about that because I was like, if you're not a creative person, you're so interested in like reading fiction and interviewing these authors. I was like, I wanted to pick your brain about that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, I guess it started when I was reading a couple series. One was the Camel Club by David Baldacci series, and I like crime thrillers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where my research is as well. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, my area of study is psychology and law. Um,
Nice.
so I'm not a forensic psychologist. That's more clinical. I might be what you would call a legal psychologist, which is more just like the non-clinical stuff. So social psychology and law is kind of what I do. And so I'm interested in crime narratives and anything court narratives and things like that.
Like
So
extreme human behavior, maybe would fall in my category.
yeah, well, that in investigations.
Mhm.
So investigations and court proceedings. So of course, Grisham and Scott Turow and some of those people are the authors that I first turned to.
Right.
Randy Singer is another one, and the idea is because it's like it overlaps with my interests already. So I don't know. You made a good point where it seems like some of the stuff I do is creative, and I do try to tell people you're right. Whenever you conduct research experiments, you kind of have to be creative. That is a
Yeah.
creative process. So I guess there's, I shouldn't say that I'm not a creative person. I guess I'm creative in those ways, but I didn't think of myself as a creative writer. Like I was very good at the formulaic, boring, straight to the point writing in academia. In fact, I tell a lot of my students, if it sounds boring and it reads really boring, then you're probably doing it right. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's
Right.
that doesn't translate into fiction writing. That's why again that's why I took to study other writers and writings in different genres and things like that because I thought I know what I can do and what I can't do. So I've got to kind of study what I can't do very well to try to learn it and be better at it. So
It's a good way to do it. I like that, like research and then application or information application. And this is going to get ridiculous here. I love the show River Monsters. That's so much fun for me. I don't know if you ever watched that, but
I have a book either I think by the guy on River Monsters or like it's about river monsters.
Jeremy
Like I got
Wade.
the book. I never watched the show, but I got the book.
Oh, he's amazing. So the way they structure the show, like in real life, I know for sure, at least from one example, that like he'll go to a place and he might catch the fish the first day, but the show has to be like it's got to be the last 3 minutes of the show and when all hope is lost and we thought we were going to
Yeah,
fail. But he'll do this thing. It's like, okay, there's an article and I read an article, there's a story, let's go investigate it. And then I'm going to speak with local people and then
yeah,
whatever they give me, I'm going to try to fish. And then that's not going to work. I'm going to go talk to the local shaman. And there's always this information then application. Like I'm going to go speak to someone, pick their brain, and then take whatever I learned and go get on the water. And it's
hmm
always this journey, right? But anyway, all that's to say, I love the information and application, right? Like let's do it on like let's learn about it, then let's try some stuff, then let's learn some more, let's try some new stuff. And I think that
yeah,
give and take that's the way, that is the path to greatness and success, I think.
yeah, yeah. A really good example of that in my personal experience, and you probably have something very similar, is I was talking to it was the Balding group, but they answered a question. One of them said, if you're going to do fight scenes, or if you're going to do like combat scenes or anything like that,
Mhm.
or in my case, murder scenes,
Right.
that kind of stuff, it'd be a good idea to learn biology.
Mm.
So, of course, I went out and got Introduction to Medical Terminology,
No, awesome.
and then the Human Body Atlas book. So I went and got books to kind of help me understand what things are called, where stuff is in the body, and things like that, so that I could become better informed in my writing. Because a lot of people who write books are like, okay, you have people who write about MEs who are former MEs. You have
Right.
people who are writing about courtroom dramas who are former lawyers.
Right.
They have this stuff just already there. There's not a lot of interesting books about research psychologists. So, you know, I'm trying one, don't get me wrong. I'm trying to
Mhm.
see if I can write one, but that's so I don't have this other expertise. And so I get these books to help me out. And it helped me write this one scene that I thought is definitely better because of the advice I took from somebody and, was able to enhance the scene a bit. And so I'm really, happy to get the information and then try to apply it. And I was pleased with the result. Of course, once the book comes out, we'll see if it works or not. But
Right. No, it's actually that's a great point. That actually has not come up in any previous podcast I've done, but It is a belief I hold that if you want to be a very good fiction writer, you also have to be a good researcher. Like you
Mm.
got to get the details correct, and people will pick you apart for the wrong details. So like I wrote a World War II story, and I'm like, okay, the German soldier takes off his helmet. Like, well, what did the German soldiers call their helmets in 1943? What kind of rifle did they use? What were some of these towns called? What were the maps, the landscape, the areas? If
Yeah,
you're going to write about a concentration camp, what was the most brutal and unknown one? Like what year did these things happen? You have to be a good researcher to be a good fiction writer. Uh,
sure. Yeah,
and that comes with passion, right? If you don't have passion, you're not going to like take the time to redirect yourself to learn something you don't know, but it will make your writing that much better to like actually know what the hell you're talking about if you're diving into something that's unfamiliar territory.
yeah,
Do your research.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, it's very biology is a great, I mean, especially for like a crime. I mean, that's like a great idea, right? Like we're gonna write a fight scene, someone gets shot. Well, where did they get shot? And then
Hmm.
what were the injuries? What was the nature of those injuries? How do you
Yeah,
describe them? That's a great idea to have.
yeah. I had a one where someone gets injured through the hand,
Okay.
and so I had to say, okay, well, if they got injured in this place on their hand, what tendons would that affect, and then how would that then affect their fingers? So, like, does
Right.
that mean they can't bend it, or does that mean they can't straighten it? So, like,
Right.
that's a really, that's a good example, a specific example of one that I have searched myself, um, because it has everything to do with like a trigger finger is what I was
Right.
looking
Right.
at. So it's like, okay, because I wanted to make sure I was like, okay, if someone hits them in the hand and they have a gun in their hand, let's say, does that make them automatically squeeze the trigger, or does that straighten their finger out where they can't squeeze it? And I was like, I want to
Right.
make sure it makes it to where they straighten it out and can't squeeze it, not automatically squeezes it, because that changes the whole scene.
No,
Uh,
that's a very good point.
so yeah, that's a specific example of where I started looking at how the medical aspect of how that, or the biological aspect of how the hand operates.
Right. How do they work? Like the flexors and extensors and where are they located? And
Yeah,
those details add up. I mean, they certainly make a difference and it brings the writing to life too. So like, but that's like, that has to do with the passion, right? Like I'm going to take the time to like really get this right. Those stories where people take their time like that, they do their side research, even if it takes you a long time to write the book, the finished product is going to reflect that level of care.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And hopefully it translates for the enjoyment of the reader, because it might take you 30 minutes, but it might just be 2 lines,
Yeah,
you know.
it doesn't look like much on paper, but
Yeah. But it really might
that's
make it work for the reader.
it's a real thing. So in terms of your manuscript, so okay, you said a nonfiction Christian book that is currently in the editing stage, and
Yeah.
then you're working on some fiction right now that's in the writing stage.
Yeah, it's about halfway done.
Very good. So in terms of your nonfiction, like the editing, are you editing it yourself, or do you have someone looking at that, or like where is you at? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm currently editing it
Okay.
because it's at the point where it's the first draft is finished, but there's places that need to be added to,
Mm-hmm.
um, and filled out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So some ideas that need to have some. I'll always, and again, this is me not having enough creative writing experience, but and I know nonfiction is not necessarily creative writing, but I think there's some elements that are similar, at least overlap, because
Well,
it's
you're
writing.
creating. I mean, you're making something from scratch. So like, what could be
Yeah.
more creative than making
So
something?
so yeah, and I apply kind of the, like, if I make a statement, I need at least three supporting statements below that. Like if I introduce an idea, I need some supporting statements. So as long as I have three, that's kind of my heuristic. Now I
Okay.
could get away with two, probably even one, but I try to have three. So there's some of those that I just need to fill out a few more statements to support each idea, uh,
Yeah.
whether it's referenced statements or citable statements, or if it's just logical statements. So
But
that's
yeah,
kind of
some evidence to instead of just I'm putting it out there as if it's fact and I'm not going to put anything to support that. I want three confirming, details or examples or something.
yeah, yeah, support statements, kind of like you said, like
Yeah.
you know, two legs. Of course, this doesn't make sense for humans, but two legs typically don't hold up a table, but three can.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of
That's
how
a
I
good
see it.
that's a good analogy. I like that for sure. God, editing is for me the hardest part. And I found, and you might run into this problem, like, well, first of all, when you're editing your own stuff, you know what's in there, and your brain tends to skip over entire words and lines, and you miss things
Sure.
because, your brain is simplifying instead of going really word by word.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like I find it like I can proofread other people's stuff all day, but my own stuff I will miss things left and right, and that's just a reality. Cat, get down. I don't know why the cat's got to mess with stuff while I'm doing a podcast. I got two crazy cats, and they're like, they hear me talking, but I'm not talking to them, and they don't like
Well,
it.
that's awesome, man. Cats, they got a mind of their own. It's not like you can do anything anyway.
Man, I got a zoo here. I got two cats, I got a dog, I got three chickens, got a little baby at home. It is a madhouse in my home.
I know. I saw. How old's your little baby now?
He is going to be 1 year on the 12th. So, I mean, he's coming up. Yeah.
Is he walking yet?
He's close. He can do it. He
Yeah.
doesn't know he can do it, though. And we're like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to tell him that he can do it because I'm like not ready for all that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he can certainly, like, he'll be standing there unsupported and not realize it. But, like, because he's got something next to him he can grab,
Yeah.
he, like, doesn't realize, oh, I'm standing by myself. And I'm not trying to tell him yet because, like, it's already, I mean, he's already too fast crawling. And if he can start
Yeah.
running, I'm like, man, I'm in trouble here.
Yeah. No, that's funny. My oldest, he walked like right, I think on his birthday at 12 months,
No kidding.
cried, I think because of all the attention or something like that,
Yeah.
and then didn't walk again for 2 more months,
No
and then
kidding.
walked like normal. Yeah. Like took his first steps where he walks across from one parent to the other.
Right.
Did that just on his own, just fine, and
Yeah.
then just didn't walk again for a couple months, and then at 14 months was a walker. So
No kidding.
it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you can, you just don't.
Right. And they're all different too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
God. And even, some people like, they'll have three kids and all three just do everything at different times and in different order. And I've heard there's babies that don't even crawl, they just start walking. And um, I don't know, it's amazing to watch. Like if I and seeing him every day, you don't realize, but like if I didn't see him for like 2 weeks or something, I mean, it would just be astonishing how fast things happen. Like they're not
Yeah,
crawling and then they're crawling and then your mind has to totally redirect. Like, okay, they're crawling now. What does this mean? Okay, let's baby proof the
yeah,
house. And um,
yeah. That's
everything changes day by day, right?
yeah. No, they find stuff real quick.
Yeah.
The one of the funniest things I remember is when he was about almost at the 14-month mark.
Mhm.
He was in like a nursery room with a 9-month-old who was walking.
Whoa.
So we're talking like he's a head taller standing up than this 9-month-old, but
Right.
she was walking circles around him. So like he'd sit and on his heels or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, babies I guess mostly sit on their bottoms. I don't know how he was sitting, but almost eye to eye with her. But he just wasn't walking and she was. It was really funny seeing such a smaller child,
Just
a
running
smaller baby
around.
walking walking around this much bigger child. So
I couldn't imagine a baby at 9 months walking because like
it was wild.
there's no
It
reasoning
was
with them.
wild.
There's no like, don't touch that. Hey, don't grab that. I mean, it's like, oh my God.
It was
Like,
it was it was something different because it was
oh,
like 9 months or 8 months was the at 8 months he was sitting up on his own maybe
okay.
or maybe trying to stand on his own or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was full on just traveling at
Ready to
nine
run
months.
marathons. You're like,
Yeah,
this kid is.
it was
I do
wild.
think.
She was
I
so
think.
small.
I think girls hit milestones sooner than boys. I've heard that with like talking, reading, just something about I don't know their like neurological makeup or something. Like they just I don't know things connect at
Yeah,
different times.
maybe.
But
I- it
but
was
this
awesome.
girl might have just
I was just watching her. I was like, this is incredible.
like wow, how is she doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, so hey, since I'm on the free Zoom, we got little less than 8 minutes left. I do
Okay.
want to make sure we focus on your channel because
Sorry.
I think no, you're you're good. I do think your channel is an amazing resource for authors. It was definitely helpful to me just because I mean when we met, I was still in the very early stages of like my own social media and marketing. Like I wasn't doing much. I was just like writing books, putting them out there, and I didn't have content, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, like you making content about my stuff and people are liking it. And I'm like, I'm selling this book and I don't know why because I'm not even like working on it or promoting it. And so what you're doing is an amazing resource. And I would love to see as many people as possible. Like anyone who follows me, I'd love they're also following you. I'm going to like take clips of this podcast and use them on TikTok and stuff to try to steer people that
Yeah,
way.
no, awesome.
Tell me more about your channel and your vision. And like, what do you have for 2025 for your channel?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, let me just get you on record. Are you gonna come back to the channel?
Oh, I'd love to.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Because like I
Anytime.
say, it's a lot. There's a few more eyes on it now than there were the first time.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be if you're up for it, I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to. I'm about to publish a new one, and I would love to send it your way and talk about it because I think It's wonderful. It's short too, so it's like,
No, you're good.
okay.
Okay, yeah. So the channel is I created it to kind of be a platform for talking about indie books because the indie author community is just extremely welcoming and really nice and helpful and beneficial. And I want it to be mutual. So when people are helping me out in my writing journeys and things like that, I wanted to try to provide kind of a platform for essentially, if you have the time, come on for any kind of free advertising or marketing you want to use it as. I buy the first book that I get of any author, I always buy, even if indie authors, suggest sending me one. The first one I always buy it because sales are important to indie authors, and I get that.
Yeah.
Then the second, the second focus is not only do I talk about the books, I read them and talk about them, but I also try to invite authors on. You were the first one, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
But I try to invite authors on to kind of give them a chance to kind of talk a little bit about and connect with anyone who they might not already be connected with through the channel. And I know this is actually pretty, there's a lot of other channels that do it too, but I might be a smaller channel that does it, but I think so far I've been talking with authors that I haven't seen on other channels.
Mhm.
And so it's cool that I'm connecting with some different authors than the typical authors who are making the rounds.
Right.
I'm here for that. So yeah, if someone wants to reach out to me, I already have a couple people that I'm kind of lining up. But some of the new stuff for 2025,
Yes.
I do a thing called Killer Thrillers and Thriller Killers, where I basically talk about a thriller book that I really like, and then I kind of try to dive into the mind of the person who is usually the antagonist, but not always, but doing the crime or there's some sort of killing that's associated with the thriller book.
Hmm.
And then I have, when I was talking to you a little earlier, is a title match where I'm going to start pitting two books against each other
Yeah.
that have the same title. So, for example, the first one, there's two books that are called Hellbent. One is by, I forget her name, but one's the third book in the Orphan X series,
Mm.
and the other one is by Lee Bardugo. And it's a second in a series. And so I'm going to kind of put these two books together or against kind of like, like a title match, like a match, and read them both and then talk about what I liked about them, then pick kind of a winner. And sometimes it includes indie books versus traditionally published books. Sometimes it's going to be traditionally published books against each other. I haven't gotten to the point where I know enough indie books to see an upcoming match where two
Right.
indie
Right.
books go together. I mean, go against each other. But, you know, I don't, I don't try to give preference to one or the other. I just say, hey, if I have two books on my shelf that share the name, they're going on there. So that's kind of fun. And then of course, really just emphasizing the indie books I read, and reviewing those and getting more authors on like yourself,
Mhm.
and hopefully repeated authors, uh,
Hey,
and continue on with that because that really is the heart of the channel. So.
that was very cool. Where do you find the books that you review? Like, how do you pick them?
I I usually go to X or Twitter. So if
Okay.
you're on X or Twitter, then that's where I'm most likely to find you.
Nice.
I do sometimes go through the recommendations on Amazon when I put one of those books in my cart.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cats are going
So,
crazy.
but it's hard to track them down otherwise.
No, that's a real thing for sure. And Twitter could be such a good resource. I probably get more scams proposed to me on Twitter than any other social media. Like in terms like the people who send you messages, like there's a lot, but there are also, people like yourself that are on there that are like amazing resources. So it is still worth putting content on Twitter. Um,
Yeah.
but it's been a little hit or miss. Like you don't always know that people are like viewing your stuff. Like if unless someone hits a like button, leaves a comment, you know that they maybe watched it, but you don't know if it meant anything to them. Um,
Yeah.
that's how I've kind of felt about Twitter. They're like, I don't really know if it's doing good, but that's how you found my book and how we ended up doing an interview. I
Yeah.
will say for any authors who are going to interview with Dr. Logan, um, it was smooth. I mean, it was like we had really just met and it was like an hour and a half and we just like had fun. We were laughing. We were talking about this and that and the other thing. And it
Yeah.
was like a very fast hour and a half.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I had like a bookshelf, and I think the computer that was like back in the bookshelf.
Yeah. It was almost like a little like book cave kind of thing. And it was
Yeah.
we were both, and I didn't have like a good camera, microphone, anything. It was just like we were both just like starting out kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it was
Um,
true.
No, but it was very cool. And I'll say, and I hear this all the time from like the indie authors I'm interviewing on my show is like a lot of them are very introverted people, right? They're in their head, they're writing stories. So this whole marketing thing where they're putting themselves out there is a scary, intimidating thing. It's something that's way outside of their comfort zone. So like having someone like yourself that is very easy to talk to, just have a casual conversation. Let's talk books. Let's have a good time. It's like the perfect kind of venue for these authors who, like, I don't know, they're not, they got to get comfortable. So they got to talk to someone who's just kind of, easygoing guy like yourself. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and I kind of have, I have both sides. So I call it the Jekyll and Hyde side, but in my
Yep.
channel, it's like the long term and then the shorts.
Mhm.
But I can be as goofy as all get out, and I can be really serious because I do take a lot of things seriously. So
Yeah.
I think, depending on the personality of the author, I'll kind of go their direction that they want the interview to go. Um, and try to lighten it up a little bit. But as far as if authors really want to talk about their stuff, then I want to get into their stuff. If they want to joke around, that I joke around. It's kind
Right.
of it is open to the author and how they want to do things. But yeah, it's a really easy interview to come on, a channel to come on, not a ton of pressure at all, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah. You were the,
And yeah, go ahead.
you were the third interview I ever did. And I was nervous at first, but like two
Oh,
minutes in,
really?
it was like, oh, we're chilling, man. Like we're just having a good time. We're shooting the breeze. And it was
And
like,
now
I just
and
had
now
fun.
you're hosting them.
Yeah. No, I'm like, you know what? We can do this.